All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a really sharp and, let's be honest, pretty explosive analysis of the French political party La France Insoumise, or LFI. Now, this is all coming from the perspective of essayist Eric Nulot, and his argument is that the party has gone through a complete and total transformation. So we're going to walk through his entire case step by step.
Wow. Okay, so Nauelo does not pull any punches. He kicks things off with this absolute bombshell of a quote. And really, this is the foundation for everything else he's going to say. So the big question is, how on earth does he get to a conclusion like that? Let's unpack his reasoning.
So for now, Leo, what's been happening with LFI wasn't some kind of accident. It's not like the party just sort of drifted in this direction over time. No, he frames this as a very conscious, very deliberate strategic move. In his view, the party we see today has fundamentally changed who they are and what they're trying to do.
And he gets really specific with his language here. His claim is that LFI has basically walked away from the bread and butter social issues that used to define the French left. He argues that they've now become, and this is his term, a party of the foreigner, and that their entire strategy is now built around appealing to this new base. To really hammer this point home, Nowell pulls out a pretty heavy term from the history books, useful idiots. He's basically saying the current leaders of LFI fit this description perfectly. He argues that they are serving the cause of Islamism and that this cause is just using them and will eventually turn on them and cast them aside once they're no longer needed. So, you gotta ask, why? Why would an entire political party make such a drastic pivot? Well, according to Nanolo, it's got nothing to do with ideology. Nope, it's all about pure, cold electoral math. At the end of the day, it's just a numbers game. And this number right here, this is what Naulu sees as the key to the whole thing. Back in the 2022 presidential election, LFI's leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, was this close to making it to the final round. He missed it by about 400,000 votes. And for Naulu, the party's reaction to that near miss changed absolutely everything. So what did they do? Noel's take is that the party looked at that 400,000 vote gap and decided they had to find those votes somewhere new. He says they went looking for what he calls a replacement electorate, and they decided to target voters in what he controversially terms the Islamized suburbs, believing this group held the key to winning. Okay, but it's one thing to talk about math and strategy. Nalo says there's real proof of this. He points to what he sees as a massive ideological U-turn, and he brings the receipts to back it up.
And just look at this. This is exactly the kind of evidence he's talking about. You've got Mélenchon's own words, then versus now. A decade ago, he's saying things like, the veil is degrading. Today, a complete 180. Same thing with Iran. It used to be scandalous for them to have a bomb. Now, it's quite normal. For Nalyo, this isn't just an evolution of thought. It's a calculated reversal to appeal to that new target audience.
Nolu doesn't think this happened overnight. He actually points to two specific moments, two tipping points, where he says this new direction became crystal clear. First, there was a big march back in 2019, and second, of course, was the fallout from that 2022 election we just talked about. Let's focus on that 2019 march for a second, because for Noyel, this was a huge deal, a real watershed moment. You have to remember, Mélenchon had built this reputation as a fierce defender of French secularism, a laicard, as they say. So for him to show up and share a platform with people Nalyo describes as fundamentalist imams, well, that was just unthinkable a few years before. Nalyo saw that as the moment the mask came off, the first really public signal of the party's new allegiance. This brings us to how LFI operates today. According to Nalo, it's not just about changing their message anymore. It's about how they act. And he argues their entire playbook is now built on one thing: creating constant conflict and division on purpose. And again, Nowell uses Mélenchon's own words to prove his point. This idea to bordellicize everything, that's a pretty intense French term. It means to make a mess of things, to create chaos. And in Nowell's reading, this isn't some accidental side effect of their politics. This is their politics. The whole strategy is to fuel tension wherever they can. He even takes it a step further. He diagnoses this sort of revolutionary fantasy inside the party. He claims they're much more inspired by the radical violence of 1793, the Reign of Terror, than they are by the original ideals of the 1789 French Revolution. And he even notes their admiration for figures like Lenin as part of this.
So how do they manage all this? Well, Nollet describes it as a two-track strategy.
They're playing on two fields at once. On one hand, yeah, they play the democratic game. They run in elections, they use the ballot box. But on the other hand, he says, they're using adjective prop, agitation and propaganda, to stir up trouble in the streets, trying to undermine the very system they're a part of.
Now, Nuleo's analysis doesn't just stop with what's happening now. He offers a very specific and, I have to say, pretty dramatic prediction for where he thinks this is all going. And this is where he gets really cinematic. He describes watching a key LFI figure, Methilde Panat, as she listened to a new party star named Rima Hassan. And he makes this incredibly intense comparison. He says the look in Panat's eyes was just like the historical footage of the Romanian dictator Ceausescu, at the exact moment he realized the crowd had turned on him and his power was gone. Nalo claims he saw that same realization on her face. She knew her time was up.
And this all leads to his final prediction, which he calls the Iranian scenario. He's drawing a direct parallel to the Iranian Revolution, where secular communists teamed up with Islamists to overthrow the Shah. But after they won, what happened? The Islamists purged their former allies. Nadolo is predicting that exact same fate for LFI's current leaders, that they will eventually be eliminated by the very forces they helped bring to power. So, we're left with this huge question at the heart of Nalo's analysis. Is everything he's describing just a deeply cynical, calculated grab for votes? Or is he right? Is he actually identifying the birth of a fundamental, maybe even irreversible shift in the entire political landscape of France? That's the thought we'll leave you with today.